Should you try accommodated employment or should you file for ERISA disability benefits? I'm going to offer you a dose of cold reality in answering that question. But the first thing we have to start out is understanding the definition of disability in your policy or plan. You want to know, under the terms of the disability or policy or plan, whether or not accommodations result in a decision that you're not going to be disabled. Secondly, you want to know, is your employer even going to offer you accommodations? And thirdly, you want to know, can you really perform the duties of your occupation with requested accommodations? And then fourth, you want to understand, what is the disability carrier plan likely to do with your request for accommodation? So with that in mind, let's get started. What's the common definition of disability in a policy or plan? Well, one of the most common definitions is that disability means that because of injury or sickness that you can't perform each of the material and substantial duties of your regular occupation, and that those material duties are duties that cannot reasonably be modified, or duties that actually can be eliminated so that you can still perform the occupation. So reasonably omitted or modified. Okay, I don't know what's in your policy or plan, but you need to look at it. The next question is, does your employer have to offer you any accommodations? And the answer is heck no. The policy or plan may not even require that your employer offer you an accommodation before they're going to look at their definition of disability and get out their mythical binoculars, if you will, to see whether or not they think that your job could be have duties that could reasonably be omitted or modified. And that's the test. Not what your employer does or doesn't do, but whether they think your duties can reasonably be modified or accommodated. So if there's an accommodation, the question is going to be, what is the accommodation? How would that impact the material and substantial duties of your occupation? How long do you think that you could work in this accommodated position? How likely is it that your employer is going to fire you once you start that accommodated position and you just can't do it? Be honest. Be honest and be honest. Let's not be unrealistic. Let's not even be delusional. Look, I know you don't want to be disabled. I know you want to try to work. I get that, but that is not the issue here. The real bottom line question is, do you think you could actually perform the duties of your occupation with the requested accommodations? Do you think your employer would offer those accommodations? How long could you do it? How long would they do it? And what would happen if you can't? Do you think you could successfully hide the problems that you're having with your employer? My experience is that my clients really can't do that. And then ultimately the question is, so what is the carrier plan going to do with this request for accommodation, regardless of whether your employer gives it to you or not? The disability carrier is really going to be looking at your occupational duties from a vocational standpoint, using it probably a nationwide standard. And they're going to try to figure out whether that the duties can be omitted or accommodated. But I promise you that your request for accommodation by its very nature contradicts the claim that you're disabled and unable to work. So what are the answers to the laundry list of questions that I just posed? I know you're optimistic. I know you want to go back to work. But I want you to be honest about you, your employer, and be realistic about what the disability carrier's game here is. Their game is not to pay you benefits. The game is to terminate your benefits. So is it worth the risk to ask for accommodations? Call me today at 727-894-3188, and we'll talk about your personal circumstances, your medical condition, your disability policy or plan, what your doctors are talking about, and what you think your employer is going to do. Don't make a foolish decision based on hope that you are going to be able to work or work on an accommodated basis, or that the disability carrier is going to pay your benefits. Let's be realistic. Call me today at 727-894-3188 for a complimentary consultation. 727-894-3188. Don't make a mistake that will destroy your continued employment potentially, your accommodated employment, and your rights potentially to a severance package, and your long-term disability claim. there are consequences. 727-894-3188.